Hello, my name is Daniil Dubov, and today I'll show you my game against Anish Giri from the recent World Rapid Championship in Kazakhstan. I played black. He started with knight f3. I played d5, g3, g6. g6 is the most solid response, and now it became some sort of a must, which is a little unfortunate. Like five or 7 years ago, people would play knight f6 followed by bishop f5 or bishop g4, but now everybody plays g6, me included, bishop g2, bishop g7. He played d4, which is the most popular move, as otherwise black gets to play 7 e5 and controls the center. So he played d4, knight f6, c4, c6. Once again, c6 is the most solid approach. You can also play d takes c4, but yeah, c6 is rock solid, and once again, everybody plays it. He took on d5, c takes d5, remaining complete symmetry, knight c3. And I played castles here. The thing is, if white starts with castling, black castles too, then after knight c3, black goes knight e4. It's very important not very important, but sort of important not to play knight c6 here, as white gets knight e5 then. So basically the side who gets his knight in the center first normally prevails. So after knight c3, knight e4, black is in time to create the threat of knight takes c3. White has to take on e4, and there is pretty much nothing. And if white starts with knight e5, then the knight is not on c6 yet, and you have both knight g4 and knight e4. They're both fine. So the point of his move order with early knight c3 is that now if black castles, then he wants to play knight e5. This is quite an old trick. And now he prevents knight e4, and after knight c6 he castles and transposes to the position he wants. Bishop f5 is the main move here, but still white has some ideas. And if I just go knight e4, just like in the line with both castles included, then there are some tries like knight d2 or knight g5, there is also h4, I guess. Let's say knight d2, takes. And then in general, white wants to somehow use the fact that he hasn't castled yet. For instance, if I castle here, then there is this h4 followed by e4, and then some plans with kingside attacks. It's not exactly killing, I must say, but it does make sense. In the game I played castles. He went knight e5, and I played knight e4. Knight e4 is a fresh idea. I actually played it against my friend Maxim Atlakov once. I don't know if Anish was aware about it. He said he was. Well, the point of knight e4 is actually very simple. Like all white did is supposed to stop it, so it kind of makes sense to check if it really works or not. So he has to take on e4, d takes e4, bishop takes e4. This was all played, knight c6. Knight c6 is a logical follow-up. Okay, I developed the pieces, I sacrificed the pawn, but at least I have castled already, and my pieces play. He played knight takes. Technically, well, first of all, if he ignores me and plays something slow like castles, then I can just take on d4 or take on e5, black is completely fine. So it's basically either knight takes c6 or bishop takes c6. Clearly in a human game you never see this. Also it does make sense. But here I guess after queen d7 followed by d5, bishop b7, black is more or less okay. And also it's much easier to play for him, which is quite important in a rapid game. So he played knight takes c6, b takes c6, and he played bishop e3. Bishop e3, I guess, is the best move, and also he, like all the sequence, was blitzed out by him, which kind of makes us think this was a prep. Once again, if he castles here, it doesn't lead anywhere. I just go bishop h3, and then I take on d4. So let's say rook e1, I guess bishop takes d4, bishop takes c6, rook b8, and then black is just in time to capture the b2 pawn in most of the lines. Also here, I guess I blundered bishop takes f2 followed by queen b6 as well. So this is not a problem. If he takes on c6 first, I guess first of all bishop h3 exists here, and takes is a sharp position with a decent counterplay for black, but there is also just rook b8. And then once again, if he castles, I can play like bishop h3, bishop g2, takes. Let's say bishop takes d4. And once again, black is normally just in time to get the pawn back. Let's say after rook b1, I guess there is queen d5 check and queen takes a2, or maybe something else. After queen c2, there is some, I don't know, queen, I guess a5 or b6, followed by rook f2c8. Anyway, black is fine here. There is also queen d5 check, by the way. So this is why he played bishop e3, which kind of makes sense. As we could see, there is no way for white to be better with something simple. So bishop e3 was blitzed out, and I played bishop h3 here, which objectively I think is a mistake. I think rook b8 is a better move. But somehow I was not exactly sure, this was not my prep for this exact game. I mean, I knew my position is more or less okay, and it was kind of clear to me that I have two options, which are bishop h3 and rook b8. I wasn't sure what the best move is, and I could not really recall the lines. And my logic was that it kind of makes sense to play bishop h3, as if it's correct, then it's good. If it's not, then most probably it's not the move he looked at most, right? Because people use engines. Basically, if engine says rook b8 is the move, then he looked at rook b8 for most of his time. So I just played bishop h3, and he started to think, which was to some extent inspiring. I realized, okay, probably bishop h3 was not the best move according to the engine, but yeah, looking at the position, I was quite in love with it. He played f3, which I thought is to some extent logical, like he's preparing this king f2 idea. Clearly white will not really castle short in this game, so he has to do something about it. I also thought queen d2 is reasonable. And then in some of the lines he'll probably castle long, which is clearly double-edged. Let's say I go rook b8. And then as the game can somehow continue, like bishop takes c6, I have queen b6. After b3, let's say I have c5. Like engine likes white in most of these lines, but yeah, in a human game it's not clear at all, is my impression. He played f3, which I think he knew that to be a good move. I think this was basically the end of his analysis. Bishop h3, f3, white is much better. I played rook b8, which is a very natural move. I'm attacking the pawn on b2. And he played b3, which is already quite a serious mistake. I guess queen d2 was the move. And we discussed it briefly after the game. Queen d2, c5, and then d takes c5, I guess. Takes. And then, yeah, there are, let's say, takes, rook takes b2, I guess bishop is 3. And then white wants to play king f2 and try to push the c-pawn. Once again, black is probably okay here with precise play, like there are lines like bishop e6, black will eventually take the a2 pawn, and with precise play he has to be okay. But it was very, very safe for white. And also queen d2 is, I mean, even in terms of geometry, after rook b8, it's clearly a bit less weakening, like after b3, like all the dark squares become really weak. His point was clearly to meet c5 by d takes c5, so bishop takes a1, he just takes on a1, and he's very happy with his compensation. And that's why he goes b3. He wants to protect the pawn on b2, and he's not worried about sacrificing the rook. But I played rook b4, after which it becomes really, I mean, again, in a practical game at least, it becomes really uncomfortable for white. And he started panicking a little. He played king f2. Well, king f2 is not exactly panicking, like, right? He's basically following up his plan with f3. He just wants to go king f2. He wants to give up the pawn on d4, connect the rooks, and then let's say if I take on d4, takes, and something like queen c2, for instance. In general, if white doesn't lose immediately, he will be slightly better, and he will not lose immediately, is my impression. So after queen b6, you can go e3 followed by rook d1. You can probably also consider queen takes c6, which is even better, it seems. So I get the logic. But again, objectively, king f2 is not brilliant. And what engine wants here is, I guess, still queen d2. And then there is c5. And once again, like with an engine, it kind of makes sense for white and all the stuff, but in general, I don't think we need to look at it as in a practical game, you just never allow such things. So king f2 is more or less a human way. Yeah, and here I played f5, which I think is the first really important move in the game. Like all the previous moves were coming naturally, but now bishop takes d4 would have been a relief from white. f5, on the contrary, is a very unpleasant surprise. He took on c6. His bishop is under attack anyway, it's reasonable to take a pawn. And now I played f4, which was my main idea. So now, again, clearly, if you take with the bishop, then there is at least bishop takes d4 followed by taking on a1. So, of course, you got to play g takes. And I played d5, which has been... I mean, okay, you can say e5 is a brilliant move, but in general, clearly starting from f5, this whole sequence is more or less obvious. Like, you don't play f5 to do something else here. You don't play f5 to take on d4 later on, as you could have done it earlier. So this was the point, and now it's kind of clear that he has to take on e5 one way or another, and then I'll play queen h4 check, and then king g1 will be the only legal move, and his king and rook will be boxed in the corner. So looking at this position, I thought it should be very, very good for black. It's not exactly correct. Like, black is completely fine, but actually with precise play, white is okay too. He played d takes c5. So after the game, he said maybe f takes c5 was a better move, but actually f takes c5 just loses. And I saw the most important line here, and he told me after the game that he saw it too, but only after I mentioned it to him. So queen h4 check, king g1. Now it's kind of a box, but I need more pieces to checkmate, so I go bishop takes c5. So now the point is that after d takes c5, the fourth rank is now open for the rook, and I have rook g4 check, f takes g4, queen takes g4, and this is checkmate, bishop g2, queen takes. I mean, moreover, if I want to have fun, I can even do this, and then f takes is still checkmate, and after king f2, well, I have queen g2, and I can also repeat. But the really cool line here is bishop takes c5, queen e1. White clearly wants dramatically to trade queens. Then he will be more or less okay. But it's not exactly a trade. Black will just give up the queen by playing bishop takes d4. And now if bishop takes, then queen takes just wins. But the really cool line is queen takes h4, bishop takes c3, queen f2 is only move, rook g4 check, f takes is only move, and bishop takes f2 is checkmate. This would be quite a game, and this is the most important line after f takes c5. Let me bring all the pieces back. So I went, what was it? I went e5. The king was on f2. The pawn was on e5. What else was there? It's probably here. It has to be something like this, right? Yeah, I guess so. So f takes c5, queen h4, followed by bishop takes c5, wins for black. So that's why he played d takes. And it is correct, actually. I mean, at least he opens the d file for his queen. Queen h4 check, king g1. Now, the big difference is that after bishop takes c5, f takes loses again, but there is queen d5 check, followed by queen takes c5. So I cannot do that. which is why I played rook takes f4, which is the best move, and I think it's a very logical move too. Like clearly, his bishop on s3 is very important, very important in the defense. It's protecting like all the dark squares. I never have queen g5 because of it. I never have this bishop h6, bishop h3 ideas, so I'm fine with giving up the rook for it. He clearly has to take, as rook g4 is a threat. I played queen takes f4. And now, now queen e3 is a checkmating threat. And he played queen d5. We were both short on time here. I was down to like, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, and he was down to maybe 1. And he played a very natural sequence of moves. He played queen d5 check followed by queen e4, which makes a lot of sense. You just prevent queen e3 check and you centralize the queen. But the engine says that queen c1 was a move here. And then for some reason white is okay. Like black has many ways to keep the balance. Like you can go queen d4 followed by queen takes c5. You can take immediately too. But yeah, somehow white is in time to get e3 followed by king f2 or king f2 followed by e3. And then he's somehow okay. Yeah, queen c1 is not the move you actually play in a classical game even, I would say. And yeah, for a rapid game, clearly it's just more or less impossible. Now, even looking at it, I remember that it's fine, but I don't really get it, to be honest. Let's say I include queen d4 check, I take, I guess king f2 is a point, and then, I don't know, some rook c8 maybe. Yeah, maybe queen c4 check and then rook somewhere. Queen c4, bishop e6 though. Yeah, I don't know. Like now I know that it works for white, and still it's not obvious to me. So it's no surprise that Anish played something else. So he played queen d5 check, king h8, queen e4, which is reasonable. Queen g5 check, king f2. Now he had this beautiful little trap. It's very natural to play queen g2 check here. Now king e1 blunders rook, so king e3 is on the move, and bishop h6. And it looks very very nice, as king d3 runs into bishop f5, winning a queen, and queen d4 runs into rook e4, winning a queen. But the problem here is that there is f4, and suddenly he's training queens, and after bishop takes f4, he goes queen takes. And I don't have a check, and suddenly my queen is under attack of this bishop, and queen takes c6 runs into mate. So this I cannot do. That's why I played rook f4. Now that we know that queen g2 doesn't work, it's kind of obvious that I need some attack to start. So I just prepare, first of all it's a temp, and secondly I just prepare queen h4 check. He played queen, I guess, to d5. I think he did. Queen h4 check. King e3. You clearly go to e3, like king g1 is technically possible, but then it's kind of obvious that after some bishop h6, black will just checkmate, his king is boxed. So of course you go to e3. So here my original idea was to go rook f5, which is actually winning. But I finally convinced myself to play rook f8, which for some reason is not winning. I don't remember why exactly, to be honest, and as we are practicing human analysis, I will not even push my memory too hard to recall that. So the point is that, like, the reason I didn't play rook f5 is that I just wanted to have the d file under control. So I was down to like 1 minute, and I thought, all right, he'll play something like, I don't know, king d3 maybe, or king d2. And then, like, eventually, if I will not checkmate in some lines like this one, for instance, immediately, then it could become kind of complicated. Some queen b8 check is also coming. I mean, again, now I know that black is winning here, but it's not so obvious to me, and I think black is winning with some quiet moves like h6 at some point, and so on. It's not exactly obvious even for a classical game. and it's even less obvious for a rapid game. So rook f8 is clearly a reasonable move. Now, like all the king d3 and king d2 will run into rook d8 in more or less all the lines, and I just let him play a move. So first of all, my strat is to play bishop h6 check, and then he has to go to d5. I just collect the queen. So it's kind of reasonable that he has to move his queen. He played queen c5, which I guess loses again. And then I was kind of precise in the execution part. Again, I guess there was some move here that kind of barely holds. Again, I don't even remember, to be honest, what it was. Could be queen, I don't know, queen e4, probably not. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Anyway, like as we are mostly trying to share the playing experience, like at this point I thought it's crazy dangerous for white and most probably I'm winning. And there was some study-like defense which he didn't fight. He played queen c5, which is logical. So he has to move a queen. He keeps e5 protected. And, I mean, also in some of the lines rook on f8 will be hanging. I played queen f4 check. Now my hope was that he'll play king d3, I go rook d8, and then bishop d5, I somehow win immediately, I guess bishop e6, and then queen e4, queen takes f3. And also I wanted e5 to be hanging too, but he played king f2 instead of king d3. His bishop is here. So he played king f2, I decided to repeat moves once, and then I played queen g5. So the point of queen g5 is that basically it's exactly the same that queen f4 is, but after king f2 I have queen g2 check, and then after king e3, bishop h6 check is winning. King goes to d5, I go rook d8, bishop f5, and everything is coming. Let's say here I go like this, and bishop f5. And white is collapsing, queen takes e2 next, and there is also rook c8 when king goes to the c file. Black is winning. So he played, instead of king f2, he played king d3. I went rook d8 check, which I guess is logical. This bishop is on g7. So after bishop d5, I go queen takes e5 again, for instance. And if he goes to c2, this was my actually dream. I thought, let's say king c2, rook d2 check, king b1, and then I'll probably even play, I don't know, maybe even queen takes e5 could be considered. Or I just play some loof. In general, this was cool. Like my point was that, like first he was boxed with the king on g1 and rook on h1, and now he's boxed exactly the same way in a different corner. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Rook takes c2 is clearly winning here. Basically, yeah, everything is winning, I guess. So he realized the two, obviously, and he played king c4. Good or bad, you have to try it. I played bishop e6 check. Clearly, I don't need this bishop on h3 anymore, as his king is far away. Now king b4 is running into bishop f8, winning the queen. And king c3 is just bad in general. You just invite all the bishop takes e5 checks, and also queen d2 is checkmate, by the way. So he played king b5. I played bishop f8, which once again is a reasonable move. Like normally once he starts running with his king, I need to bring the pieces and I need to adjust them for a new target. Kind of, so this bishop was great when his king was on f2, and I had this bishop h6 ideas and stuff, but now I need to bring it closer to the queen side. So queen takes a7 here runs into queen takes e5, clearly. The queen is under attack. He played queen c3, protecting e5. And I played rook b8 check, which is very logical, I guess. He went to a4, king a6. I mean, there are probably many reasons why it's bad, and probably I don't even need to move. But my intention was to go queen d8, and then clearly the queen is coming. Also rook b6 followed by queen c7 is another threat, and there's bishop c8 as well, like everything is coming. So he went to e4, which would be quite a reasonable move actually, as rook rook b4 check runs into queen takes. And then I'm not even sure black is better. Like if white will stabilize and protect his bishop, most probably I will not checkmate with queen and bishop. So I have to do something else. And the something was queen e7, which I played. And I think it's a very good move. Like just one by one, I bring all the pieces to queen side, and then finally the end is near, the end of the game, and the end of the board as well for the white king. So queen a3 is a checkmating threat. There is not much to do about it. If he plays queen b2 or queen c1, then the b4 square becomes available for my queen. So he played a3, after which many things win for black, I guess. But I played the easiest one, I just took on b3. He has to take, rook takes b3. King takes b3, queen e6 check. And yeah, then wherever white king goes, I can just collect the bishop and black is completely winning. So that's why Anish resigned here. This was actually one of the most memorable games in my career, I must say. I mean, sometimes right after the game you just have this feeling, wow, I actually played really well. It doesn't happen often. But this game, yeah, made me really proud, and I hope you liked it too.